this somehow managed to become a news story because Google Drive was still so terribly designed. It's hard to believe Google Drive just now getting copy and paste shortcuts. I didn't even realize it was missing this. So previously, if you had files in Google Drive, I think you had to like right click on a file and then there was like a context menu where you could click copy and things like that. Or you could, if you're going to drag it into a folder, you could drag it into a folder. But how was it missing these shortcuts? I genuinely like don't know. Like I don't know. I thought it was there because I was one of the very, very, very unlucky people that were a part of some of the like early public beta testing for Google Drive. So my high school adopted Google Drive literally as early as they possibly could. And back then, two things were a problem. The school had a horrible connection. I think the school had like 100 megabit, like for the whole school. So, you know, it wasn't fast on the best of days. But the other problem it had is Google Drive early on just wasn't good. It's not great now, but I mean, it wasn't like consistent to use. Back then, it was still a lot earlier in the days of how we handle the cloud, basically. And it would randomly disconnect. You'd be like typing stuff. It wouldn't save it because the saves are handled on the server side. So if the server doesn't ever see the data, nothing gets saved. You know, you don't want to edit documents in a like web setting without some form of local backup. And at least at the time, I know it does now have an ability to export stuff, but I know there's still no way to like manually save it. Like the saves happen when Google Drive decides to do a save, which is supposed to be after every key press, but you know, sometimes disconnects happen, things like that, and it's just not great. Or sometimes, this is the other problem with the school adopting Google Drive basically as early as possible. It was an Australian school, so we had 100 megabit, but sometimes we had 0 megabit because the connection would be down. So if all your work was in Google Drive, you just couldn't work. Like, the way the online schooling is done now is just so much better than it was back then. The early days of online schooling in a high school setting were not good. They were like really, really bad. Like this was online schooling, but in a physical setting. So like they could fairly easily not do that. But they didn't not do that. They did that, and it was just terrible. Actually, a lot of the way that school set up its education wasn't great. So when I was there, all of the assignments, and it's probably more so now, all of the assignments were on the computer. It was either doing research assignments or writing some stuff up in Word or things like that. So, or there'd be like some document and the teacher wouldn't have printouts for it because you'd be expected to do everything like on the computer itself. So it wasn't a bring your own device situation. The school gave out devices. So they like effectively rented out devices to the students. Now, this was fine until they thought, hey, how do we punish the students because they're playing games with these computers? Because obviously, if you give students a computer in class, they're going to play games on it. They would then take away the device that was used to do all of your schoolwork. So you were just like, okay, well, how do I work now? And some of the teachers would try to like work around it. Like, hey, look, there's like, you can do it on paper. And it's just like, you really can't because the assignments weren't built around doing paper anymore. It was like, there was this and there was that. But it's just like, it just didn't work. Like the shift towards doing purely online, even in a physical setting, had been going on for a very long time, and it just doesn't work in many situations unless you have that paper backup there for when things go wrong, because things will go wrong, or you'll do something where they want to apply some punishment, things like that, but it's just a mess.